Yes, Mario! Ding, 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 ding! Yeah, we're talking about capitalism, like, newsflash, what is possible with the money that they do have available. And then maybe push them a little bit past it, because always try to get a little bit more money out of them, duh. Feeling fancy all of a sudden. Yes, we are fancy. That's what we do. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Rich Artist Fridays. It's so good that you guys are here. Hello to everybody in the Instagram Live as well. Thank you for showing up yet again for another week, for another Rich Artist Friday. I'm so excited that you guys decided to round out the week with me, no matter where you are in the world, whether it's in the morning, like where I am right now, or the evenings. I always think it's so great when you guys tune in. I love seeing your faces if you're here in the Zoom and if you're in the Instagram Live. If you ever want to join and, say hi to me before we hit record face to face, then sign up via the Eventbrite so you can come and actually partake in the live sessions. If you guys are in here real quick, sorry about the recording, but if you guys are in here in the Instagram Live and you were having trouble joining the actual Zoom, I saw lots of you guys bought tickets, grabbed a free ticket. But unfortunately, I missed the point where I had to link the Zoom link. So there's a Zoom link linked now. So if you want to join the Zoom, you should be able to do that via the Eventbrite page now. So sorry about that. But if you're in here in the live, it's the same thing, right? Except for I'm looking down here. But as in every week, if you ever miss a session, we upload them on YouTube, and you can always catch up on them on your own time. If you're in here for the first time, my name is Sophie. Thanks for being in here. I am a freelance beauty and fashion photographer. I live in New York City, but I'm originally from Germany. And the reason why I decided to start doing Rich Artist Fridays and create the Rich Artist program in general is because I have a degree in photography and I assisted lots of other photographers as a lighting tech. I was a digitech. I've been in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. I've done commercial post-production, all of these things. And yet somehow I didn't really get taught how to run a successful photography business, and finding that balance between being an entrepreneur and being an artist and making a living off of my art is something that I had to really teach myself over the last couple of years. I had to hire my own coaches and I had to have mentors and teachers that sort of guided me through it. And I had to sort of really maneuver my way into that mindset. And I think it's such a shame that a lot of us artists really buy into this starving artist's lifestyle or this like stigma. That's why the program is called the Rich Artist Program, because I want to sort of break that stigma. And when I talk about being a rich artist, I'm not just talking about in a monetary sense, even though it is so important for us to have the resources to be able to be thriving artists and be as creative as we can be. We all know that if we're occupied mentally with financial struggle, then it's hard to be spontaneous. It's hard to create the best art. We all know that if we're handed a huge budget, our projects are going to be significantly better and of higher production value, which is an asset to what we're trying to put out into the world. And at the same time, I also want you guys to be rich as in rich in confidence in how you go after the clients that you might want to be talking to, or how you show up within your own business. It's hard sometimes to get into the headspace of just being an individual person, just like a sole entrepreneur that then gets to work with gigantic companies and brands that have like tens, if not hundreds or thousands of employees that are all sort of keeping the machine running, and we're over here by ourselves a lot of times. Or even if you do have an agent or just an assistant or whatever, we're a small operation, especially in the beginning. And I want to give you guys the tools that have helped me to sort of feel empowered in that and start identifying myself as a successful business owner, because that really helped me with my confidence, and it also really helped me start to enjoy doing my art again, and feel empowered in that. I now feel like I can create the career path that I've always wanted without just feeling sort of at the I don't want to say at the mercy, but like just sitting here and praying and praying and praying that the right sort of jobs land in my lab. I feel like I can be proactive about it and I can go after the brands that I'm interested in working with, and at the same time also just sort of shape what type of work I get to do, which is really, really cool when that starts happening. And it feels very empowering. And I know that you guys can do that as well. And I want to help you guys do that as much as I possibly can. So Fridays, we do 30 minutes for free, just quick, whatever topic seems relevant right now, whatever is on your guys' mind. I have a really long list of suggestions that you guys send in. So thank you so much for that. Those are going to be some of the next couple of things that we do. And then every once in a while we throw in a fun story time, because I have experienced such crazy stories up until this point in my career, from shooting my first ever commercial campaign. Last week we did a story time about the first time I ever shot a worldwide beauty campaign, which was absolutely nuts. My first time doing a travel job. So if you guys want to hear that story, that's up on my YouTube as well, or just watch the live recording on Instagram. That always gets posted on my feed after the live ends. But this week we're gonna go back to what we talked about the previous week. The previous week we talked about sort of photography clients, and how to reach the right person in a brand, how to do that outreach, how to sort of get in the mindset of networking that actually can be fruitful, rather than just like cold hard outreach emails that land in not the right email inbox most of the time. And then I wanted to sort of follow that up this week with, what does a photography client want? Because I think for a lot of us, we oftentimes go into approaching clients, and I'm mostly going to talk about commercial clients again, but I think this can be applied to private clients as well. But when I say client, I specifically mean like brands. Hi you guys. Can I pose for you? Slide into my DMs, maybe, if you're in New York City. Oftentimes I find that when photographers do finally get in front of a client, and again, we talked about how to do that effectively, we feel like we got to do this huge sales pitch right away. We feel like, oh, now that I'm finally talking to this person, I have to really convince them of my worth, and I have to prove myself to them, and I have to show them that I'm the right person for this job. And oftentimes we forget to put ourselves in our clients' shoes and relate to what a client would want from us. And oftentimes when we're on this first call, or we're meeting somebody and we're still in that networking phase, a sales pitch is not necessarily the best way to get a foot in the door. It's not the best way to make a lasting impression. I wanted to take today to sort of just change our perspective a little bit and think about, if I were a brand, if I were a creative director, if I were a marketing director, if I worked at a marketing agency, if I were a producer, if I, whoever the person is that you're talking to, what is it that they would genuinely want within that first point of contact? And what does a photography client want in general? I think sometimes we forget to even think about that, because we're so convinced, we're so like focused on having to sell our worth and prove our worth, that that when I started sort of really being able to be like, oh, now I get it, like what they need from me. Now I'm starting to understand how to make a client feel taken care of, and feel seen and heard in their needs. That's when I didn't feel that much pressure anymore when I was talking to a client, to be like, oh God, I hope they like me. I hope I seem trustworthy. I hope I seem mature and professional enough. And step away from that and just sort of be able to be like, I get it. Like all these clients, they do have certain things in common. Ciao from Italy. Ciao back. So what does a photography client want? I see you guys in the Instagram live. So if you're in here, maybe hit the comment section and just like give it your best shot. What does a commercial client that might potentially be hiring you, what do they want? I'm curious. Like let's turn this into a feedback round, like, because I'm curious if you guys ever think about this. So I'm gonna give you guys a second, see what you guys come up with. You're talking to a brand, beauty brand, hair care brand, fashion brand. You're talking to their creative director, maybe you're talking to them for the first time, like, what do you think they want? Soul says he wants to feel seen, heard, and understood. Yes, good. Um, good try. And he, she, they want to pay you. Hopefully they'd want to pay you. But is that the main goal of a commercial brand, to pay the artists? Somebody says clients want to be unique. Also very good point. Yes, of course, every client wants to be unique. Why do they want to be unique? What's the point of that? Like if they gave the capacity, they would rather pay you 20K than 2K. You mean if they have the capacity? Um, Mariam says to sell. Yes, Mariam. Ding, 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 ding. The main goal of any brand is to sell product. Sorry if that's a letdown for a lot of you guys. But the number one goal of a commercial client is to sell product. That's just facts, okay? And all of you guys, the other comments, you're absolutely right, and that comes along with the main goal of selling a product. But it's understandable that as artists, we're like, okay, they want to be unique, they want to stand out, they want to have the budget, ideally, to like pay for a huge production, all of those things. Why do they want those things? Because if they do all those things, they sell more products. And guys, yes, this is, commercial ambiguity here. We're talking about capitalism, like newsflash, but that's not a bad thing. Put yourself in this position where you can meet your client and be like, I want you guys to sell as many products as you possibly can, because that is the whole operation of a brand. If your brand isn't selling any product, there's no collaboration, there's no campaigns, there's no production budget. This is what brands live off of. This is the oxygen that brands breathe, is the sale of their product. And if they can raise the sales of their product, they can evolve as a brand. If you guys have ever talked to brands before, if you're talking to, a startup brand or a small boutique brand versus $1 billion brand, and I've done the legwork, I've done the whole spectrum at this point. No matter at what stage a brand is at, they're always thinking about, what is the next development for our brand? How do we level up? And when they're talking about leveling up, yes, us artists, we immediately think visually, production value, how do we stand out? How do we get more engagement on social media? How do brands build communities? These days brands, they're so engaging with their audience on social media because we're all so entertainment focused. Why are they doing that? Because they need to sell more product. If a brand wants to evolve and grow, hire more employees, get better marketing, whatever it is that they want to do in order to be unique and stand out, they have to continuously grow their sales. And if you are running a business, if you are an entrepreneur, just as much as an artist, which I highly encourage you guys to start wrapping your minds around, you have to understand that. And you also have to be okay with that. And you have to understand that, like, even though you're the one that's in front of the client right now, and that, you're trying to network and trying to make an impression, this is the number one thing that a client cares about, is how can they sell more product. And if you can get on that page with them, that is a huge green flag for any client, because most artists, clearly, they're not there. They're not going to meet their client from that perspective. They're not going to sit down with them and be like, tell me about where you're going, where with your brand. Where do you see your brand in the next 2 years? Like, how have you been engaging your clients? Like, how have you, what have you been doing to build a community? What have you done in the past that has led to a spike in sales? Like, you don't have to have like a marketing conversation with them. But when it's your first time meeting a client, or even, down the road within production, that is always going to be in the back of their minds, is how is this going to lead to the growth of this brand? how is working with you going to lead to the growth of this brand? So if you can start a client off with that sort of conversation and letting them talk about, what their hopes are in terms of sales and in terms of audience engagement, that's a really good point to start off at. When I realized this way, I was like, for a long time, I feel like I almost sabotaged myself from thinking about it in this way because I identified so much with being an artist that I was like, I'm not here to like even care about the product. Like I don't oftentimes like maybe we don't care about the product, we care about the visuals, we care about the storytelling, we tell about the aesthetic, um we care about being unique and having a unique perspective, and we want to do that in collaboration with brands because brands hold the money that we want. Like, let's just be honest here. That's just the truth. But if you want to get to those clients and get them to hand you their money, and it's totally cool that that's our priority because it should be our priority because we're the artist, we're not the brand that's selling the product, but understand that it's okay for them to have their priority as well. And their priority is the product and the sale of the product. And you are a puzzle piece in order for them to do that. And that's okay. That's totally cool. And if you can sort of get to a place where you're like, yes, I want to be your greatest asset in selling more products, a client is going to feel like, oh, I can trust this person because this person understands my needs and cares to recognize that. Start off at that point. It's honestly the best thing you can do with any brand to meet them at that point where they're at. So what does a client want? A client wants to sell product. Now, obviously, past that, that's a given. Past that point, what does a client want from you? I think when they first meet you, they want to tell you how they're hoping to do that, because it's not your job to know how to sell more products for a brand. You're not a marketing person, you're not a marketing agency, you're an artist, okay? Your job is to know how to make things look beautiful, how to run a photo production, how to do the pre-production on campaign shoots, how to manage the post-production, and how to walk your client through that part of the process that you're an expert in. But before you get to that point, you need to gain your client's trust. And the client's priority is to sell a product. So when you meet a client, letting them talk about what their plan is in order to sell more products makes them feel like you care to first understand what they want, where they're at, where they're going to go. And then you come in with your expertise and can advise from a creative's perspective of how you would approach going about doing that. And also, the great thing is you don't have to do it alone most of the time, depending on the size of the brand. You might be talking to a marketing director, you might be talking to a creative director. There are so many people on their team that have already thought about all of this, that have already sort of come up with a plan, and you're helping them execute it. Now, if you're being valued as an artist just as much as the service provider for photography, then obviously you also get to be part of that team that gets to bring creative input, that gets to sort of maybe even throw ideas in the pool or just advise on the best approach of what they already came up with creatively. What does a client want? A client wants to, like you said, Sol, feel heard and understood and seen. And that honestly is kind of an easy thing to do. I'm starting to find that a lot of conversations with clients that I used to be so stressed about and that I used to be quite anxious about because I felt like I needed to make the best impression and somehow stand out amongst a crowd of hundreds of other photographers that are standing behind me gunning for the same job. I kind of get to sit back, relax, and just listen. If you can just sit there and listen and ask the right kind of questions, or just ask for clarification, ask for more details, like ask about, tell me more about that. Like that interests me. Like I'm genuinely interested in understanding the process that you have already gone through to grow your brand to the size where it is now and how you envision to go from here. that's all you need, because ultimately what a client remembers about you isn't what you wore or what you said, or even, you know, if your portfolio is the best one they've ever seen out of every photographer in the world. What they remember is how they felt talking to you. And what feels better than getting to talk about what you care about? Like, think about this. If you're genuinely, if you're having a conversation with anybody, if you're getting to talk to a person about something you're passionate about or something you care about, doesn't that make you feel amazing? And then afterwards, when you think about that person, you remember how you felt, but you don't ever really feel amazing about yourself because of what the other person was telling you about them. You feel amazing about what you got to share about yourself. Same thing goes with for a client. So step number one is letting them talk about themselves, giving them room to express what's really important. And then you can, yes, you can sort of venture into this world of like, um, you know, I think this creative concept is perfect within that direction that you're trying to go in. Or some brands that I have recently worked with, these are some of the approaches we brought on that were heading in a similar direction, that had sort of similar priorities as you did. And these are things that we found very effective. Or here are some key elements that I think would be really clever to incorporate within this approach as well. Or something that I found that can really underline this perspective, or this focus of inclusivity, or whatever it is that the client is talking about, is approaching it in this way. Or from my perspective as an artist, something that I have always been very grateful to get to contribute to this aspiration in terms of a production or of a campaign is you know, diversifying behind the camera, or the tone in the room within which this production is run, or, you know, being mindful about the people that are within my crew, because I have found it proven again and again that the way that a talent feels, they get to be authentic in their identity in front of the camera, makes a world of a difference within the impact that an image can have when it is being seen by your audience, and how much it will engage your audience and your buyers, and how much more it builds a strong lasting relationship with your already loyal customer base. Like, that's what we're after. Or, you know, if a moment can be powerful within the authenticity that is within the expression of the talent, because the talent genuinely feels empowered in front of the camera, single image can make a world of a difference. I've had individual images of mine gone viral and being seen and reposted by millions of people, been posted by platforms that have millions and upon millions of followers. And that image managed to do that sort of almost on its own, because all the circumstances that I provided for that image to be able to be captured were ideal for the story that we were telling. And that is what I specialize in. That is the sort of thing that you can say to a client, but it's something that's secondary to letting them talk about themselves first. And then you can sort of shake hands on it with them, if after being like, I hear you, I see you, I understand you, I'm coming from the same place, we have the same sort of vision, we're heading in the same direction, that's where we're aligned, that's why we're a good fit to work together. I hope that inspired you guys a little bit right now. So start thinking about, where do you align with your clients? And you can have that in the back of your mind, but you're not there to sort of just push that on a client. Sometimes saying less, I find, is more, even in these conversations. So sorry, I feel like I just need to climb off of my soapbox for a second and regroup. Let's see what a client wants. I think from that point onward, a client wants to know that you yourself are organized internally, that your business structure internally is strong enough and reliable enough to be entrusted with their production budget. That comes a little bit further down the road, and I don't think this is something that would I would even think about like on like the first or second call, depending on how long the whole process is of like you doing a campaign with them. But that is something that's important to clients as well, obviously. You knowing how to write them an estimate, knowing what sort of questions you should be asking in order to even gauge what sort of estimate you should be writing them. Something that I found really, really useful as well is making a client feel like, I see you guys, I see your limitations. And yet I am not willing to neglect my standards or the parameters that I am certain of I need in order to deliver the quality that a client would need in order to go to wherever they just described to you where they want to go with their brand. And being able to be honest about that to a client, not being too shy to say that to a client. Like it takes a level of confidence and self-assurance to be able to say to a client, what you have just described to me in terms of effect and impact that you want this campaign to make. This is the level of production budget that I have typically seen for this sort of campaign that you just described to me in order to make it impactful. Now, here is the sort of the margins of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, these are the margins within which we have wiggle room. And being able to say, I think with making cutbacks in these areas, I know that I can still guarantee a result that will be of use to you, but also being able to walk away if you feel like it's impossible. Be like meeting a client from a perspective of like, hey, I also am running a business internally. I have my running costs and I am of no use to any brand if I can't cover my running costs. So I will not say yes to every job because some things will be a bad business deal for me and they will ultimately end up hurting me in my business, which happens less often than we would think. But sometimes walking away is the right decision. But then also, making a client feel like they're taken care of, where you're not just like, okay, whatever money you throw at me, I'll just take it and I'll figure it out. That should scare clients more than it often does, because like, oh, yeah, like we just said, a client isn't even thinking from a perspective of an artist. They're just thinking about how can I save money and how can I get the best end result, which we all know is like, that's a hard combination to strike. So if you, and like any client, no matter what budget they have, and like I've worked with billion-dollar brands, every client is gonna want to strike that balance of like as cheap as they can possibly get it, because why spend unnecessary money, but get the best results. And that's where they look to you because you're the one that's providing the service. You're the one that's doing the job. So they're not gonna tell you where that line falls for you. They might give you the parameters of what their working budget is, and that's very helpful, because we all know we could write $100,000 estimate if we had to. But giving a client the sense of stability where you're like, I'm not gonna just drop all my numbers just so that I can work with you, because that wouldn't be of help to you or to me. What I can do for you is actually be an expert and a professional at what I do and tell you where I think we can save on budget and where I think and where I know it's a non-negotiable to have this sort of budget. And that's, not just with like production, when it comes to like equipment and stuff like that, but also like usage terms, for example. Like right now I'm in the works of like a pre-production for a campaign shoot, and it's a really small brand, but they're gaining traction, they're gaining investors, they're a fantastic apparel brand. And I sort of asked them, about their previous productions. They told me, what sort of catastrophic photography experience they've had, what things they've done that have really worked for them. Their last campaign was was pretty beautiful. And then we started to talk numbers, and they said, well, this was the budget we gave, like the photographer asked for last year. It was this many images, you know, no usage rights because we're so small. Like he just sort of did it on like a one-time thing, and like, you know, they didn't make a contract about usage rights. And I wrote them an estimate that was sort of hitting close to where they were trying to be. And yet I still put in usage rights with like a very, very low number. Okay, you guys, like this is a small brand. This is not like they don't have millions of followers or anything like that, but like, you know, a couple 100,000. So it's not like these pictures aren't going to be seen by people. And I said to the founder, I was like, I know you didn't do this the last time. I put in the usage rights here as a foundation to sort of have stability within these contracts that we're making, because I know you guys are going to grow. I know you guys are going to be able to raise your production budget to much higher. I also said to them, you know, like, oh, I was thinking we were going to hit a little closer to $10,000 because that's the budget I wrote last year. And that's what they were gunning for having this year. Turns out they don't, but it's okay because they gave us a budget where I know we can still create something beautiful that will be of use to them. And I agreed with them. I was like, I think it's time for us to start working together. I think it's the time is right, even if we have to sort of be a little bit light on our feet with how we run this thing. But one of my non-negotiables was, from day one of starting to work with this brand, I am going to have a clause in there about usage rights, even if I'm not going to charge them a lot for it. Because it gives us a foundation to stand on as we expand our relationship, as production budgets might grow, as, you know, maybe hopefully years down the line, we're still working together. We started out on the right foot that I have to charge usage rights because it's the only product that I own, is the copyright of these images. And selling them the rights to use the images is the foundation that I want to build our relationship on, from one business owner to another. That is the sort of agreement I'm looking to have with every commercial brand I work with. So it's a non-negotiable to just take it out. That's not how I will enter into this relationship with the client. And that is the sort of thing that I think will ultimately, it might not be what a client thinks they might want, because what they think they want is to just save money left and right. But ultimately, I think they will appreciate it more for you to take that sort of stance, because it makes them feel like they can trust you. It makes them feel like they can rely on you, and it makes them feel like you know what you're doing and what you're after and what your priorities are, and what things you're not willing to go back on, because you also have to build a growing business, same as them. You know, if they grow and they make more money and they make more sales, so grows your business if you guys have a relationship. So I always say to clients, like, I want you guys to sell so many products. I believe in this product. I think your product is great. I love your messaging of your brand. I love the people I'm meeting behind the scenes. I want nothing more for you than to sell millions of these things, whatever it is, right? But in order for me to be able to help you to do that, these are the parameters I need in order to be able to give you that guarantee. And that's what a client wants. They want a guarantee that what they're putting their money into is going to be worth the investment, once you get them to the point to recognize that any photography production should be an investment. Because if they continuously spend the same amount of budget on their productions, their brand is only going to go so far. We all know this. And a brand knows this, okay? And their goal is always to grow and have more money for these things. And you can emphasize, you can, have empathy for that, or, whatever, like you can relate to that. And you can meet brands with being like, it's not atypical for a brand to not have the budget that an artist might ideally want, or that we know we could utilize in order to create something amazing. Like that's pretty standard. So there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with you always gunning for a higher production budget. But what a client truly wants is to know that you can use your expertise to sort of give them the framework or like the limitations of what is possible with the money that they do have available, and then maybe push them a little bit past it, because always try to get a little bit more money out of them. Duh. I see a comment. I love to see my work as an investment from the brand. Yes, yes, absolutely, you should. Feeling fancy all of a sudden. Yes, we are fancy. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's why we're not just artists, we're entrepreneurs, we're a business, and we're an asset. So really good point. Start thinking of yourself as an asset to a brand. That's a really good way to kick off a relationship with a commercial brand. All right, that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to sit down now and pre-program the next couple of Rich Artist Fridays, so keep an eye out for that. And if you guys left a comment about what you want to see for Rich Artist Fridays, check that out, because most likely there's going to be something in there for you, because I saw all of your comments and they actually gave me some really good ideas. I also had an idea this week, mistakes I made in my career, which I think would be really funny to do a Rich Artist Friday on, like things where I was like, I could have done that better so that you guys don't have to do the same thing. So thanks for tuning in today. Again, always check out the YouTube if you want to see the official recordings. And yeah, if you want one-on-one coaching, hit me up, slide into my DMs. I do free coaching consultations, and keep an eye out for this year's workshops that we're gonna start advertising soon. All right, I love you guys so much. Bye-bye.